G'day poker people, in today's video I go on a heater in a 5-10-20 game and work up the biggest stack I ever have, which is over $12,000. Make sure you stick around to the end though to see if I can keep all the profit when an aggressive villain puts me in a really tough spot with ace high. There's numerous pots worth over $4,000 to get to in today's video, but I don't want to waste any more time because we kick the thing off with some insanity. So let's get to gambling and let's go. We are in these 5-10 streets for 2,000 bangers, and in this first hand, a tight aggressive hijack opens it up to 40. The action folds around to my big blind and I peel a 7 deuce of clubs. Definitely going to want to be 3-betting a polarized range, closing action out of the big blind, and I think this is the perfect spot to send a message. I 3-bet to 175, and then the hijack calls. Well shit, that's not what we wanted to see. Whatever the case, we are heads up to a flop, 10-6-6 rainbow with 1 club. I think the opponent's going to have a lot of strong hands on this board, mostly pocket pairs, so I just check it over to them, see what they go ahead and do. But when they check back, we get a free turn, which is the 4 of clubs, giving us a flush draw. Of course, we need to start stabbing now that we've picked up extra equity. Plenty of ace-high hands, we can get the opponent off by the river. So I make it 200 bangers to go. Then the villain throws in the call. So hoping we get there on the river, maybe we can value bet. And then we get there on the river on the 7 of diamonds. So we don't make the flush. I think we have a bit of showdown value now. Maybe we can check it over to the opponent, see what they go ahead and do. But they check it back pretty quickly and they said they have 2 pairs. I ask, which ones? And he says, oh, you're probably good, as he shows pocket 5s. So let's go. We're raking in the first hand with 7 deuce in a 3-bet pot. Welcome to the game, baby. So we got the under the gun straddle on for this next one, and it'll actually stay on for most of the hands going forward. I'm first to act under the gun with ace king offsuit. We are waking up with trash and premiums today. This one I'm going to raise up to 60, and the actions to a tight aggressive cutoff, who was actually the same villain we played in the previous hand, who 3-bets to 200 bangers. When the action's back on me, definitely could go either way between calling and 4-betting, but I think with a early position open facing a 3-bet, their range is going to be a bit stronger, particularly because it's a tight aggressive opponent. So I think just playing it a bit cautious and flaying here might be the best play. So I throw in the call and heads up to a flop of Jack 10-6 rainbow. I check it over to the villain, then they go ahead and c-bet for 250. Larger size, which is definitely very concerning to me, but when we have a gut shot to the nuts and potentially some showdown value with ace high, a bit dicey when the opponent c-bets large, I decide to throw in the call here. Wouldn't hate just folding though. We are heads up to a turn, which is the 4 of clubs. No help for us. We check it over to the villain. Then they check back. Some possibility they are checking back ace king, although I will say on a board that's like kind of scary for aces and kings, I wouldn't be surprised if they check them back, and you know, I may or may not have an aggressive table image for whatever reason, couldn't imagine why, so they might be trying to induce bluffs with those hands. So when the rivers are 2 of hearts, really don't want to stab when I think my opponent is never folding an overpair, so I check it over to them. They go ahead and bet 600 bangers, and yeah, I still think they have an overpair here, so pretty easy fold with ace high, and we give a little bit of money back after the 7 deuce suck out. We're in the hijack with king queen offsuit, raise it up to 60 bangers, and then we get 2 different callers. So we're 3 ways to a flop of ace 10-6 with all hearts. So we actually flopped a nut flush draw as well as a gut shot to a straight. Having said that though, when the small blind checks it over to me, despite having so much equity, I think both of the villains are going to have a bunch of top pair plus combinations in their range, and I don't really want to be stabbing multi-way. So I check it over to the cutoff, who does put in a stab. He makes it 65. When the small blind folds, I think we just have to call here. I do not think a check raise convincingly represents anything when we check on the flop, so just have to call and draw for this. Very reasonable price. I throw in the call and we're heads up to a turn, which is the 4 of hearts, baby. Let's go. We turn the nuts. I check it over to the villain in flow, who goes and puts in a stab over 175. Now I think we have to keep trapping here. I think a check raise is unbelievably face up. We're just going to have a bunch of nut combinations in our range. Might be a really good spot to check raise as a bluff, but when we have the nuts, I think we have to keep trapping, and then fingers and toes crossed the villain bluffs on the river. So I throw in the call and we're heads up to a river, which is the king of spades. Definitely need to keep trapping, and fingers and toes crossed the villain decides to bluff or value bet thinly on the river, which I think is something a loose aggressive player is prone to do. So I check it over to them. Then the villain is in the tank about 60 seconds or so before checking it back. Pretty painful 60 seconds, but at least we know we're raking in this pot. I show my hand and then the villain mucks. We are running hot to kick things off. No straddle on for this next hand. I guess the under the gun player was swiping on Tinder or something and forgot to straddle. Whatever the case though, the action folds to my cutoff with ace-9 offsuit. I make it $40 and then I get called by our firefighter friend in the big blind. So we are heads up to a flop of 9-8-7 rainbow when the villain checks it over to me. Definitely want to try and get a bit of value with the hand of strongest top pair. I bet 25 and then the firefighter calls. So we're heads up to a turn, which is a 2 of clubs putting out backdoor clubs. And then things get interesting when the firefighter leads for 25. Now I think when they choose this small of a sizing, they're going to have a bunch of hands that are like a pair plus a draw, backdoor clubs, that are trying to set their own price to draw. So now I actually feel very confident about the strength of my hand here, and I just want to raise for straight value to charge those draws. And I want to use a kind of larger size as well, since I don't think my opponent is going to fold those hands very often. I ultimately decide to make it 200 bangers here, and then the villain throws in the call. So it heads up to a river, which is the jack of clubs, absolutely awful river. We lose to a bunch of those draws now. So when the villain checks it over to me, very happy to take a free river here. I check it back and then the villain shows 6 deuce of diamonds. So we're taking in another one, baby, with a thin value raise on the turn. You love to see it. Next hand up is a double board pot limit Omaha bomb pot to pay the time charge. Love these bloody things. I've got Queen Jack 9-6 in what would have been the small blind, so I'm first to act. But I'm going to put both the boards up there, and you can see we flop pretty well. Top pair with the open-ended straight draw on the first, and top 2 pair on the second board. My strategy in double board bomb pots when I am out of position to 5 or more people is just to check all of my range and then get the informational advantage of seeing what all the other players do. So that's definitely true when I'm out of position to 7 different people. So I check it over to them, and then the +1 player goes ahead and makes it 125. There's 3 different folds before the button to my direct right calls. Now the action's on me, and I think with this hand we are definitely strong enough to repot it, particularly since we have a queen. We know for a fact neither of the other opponents have top set, so even if they do have a worse set on one of the boards, they're going to be petrified about someone having pocket queens. And if we do get stacks in against any hand, it's likely something with a big draw, and since we have showdown value on both boards, the chances that we get scooped here are unlikely. So I go ahead and repot this son of a bitch. I make it 700 bangers, and then something unexpected happens. A loose aggressive opponent to my direct left rips it all in for 2,000. The other 2 players fold. Was not expecting that, but I think it's very likely the opponent has like a set on one board and a draw on the other board, and occasionally we're going to get scooped by that hand, but we are not getting scooped just yet. So I do throw in the call, particularly getting this good of a price. And the big blind says, there's only one hand I hope you don't have. And I was like, no, don't worry, mate. I don't have pocket queens. And we see both the runouts there. And you can see we turn a straight on the top pair to go with our 2 pair on the second board. So now we're really hoping he had a set on the top board, particularly when the river does not pair. I show my hand. The opponent looks really disappointed, checks his cards a couple of times before mucking. So we are raking in this over $4,000 pot in a double board bomb pot. What is going on?
I have to push it. I don't want to fucking go multi-way.
Jack on once again.
Jack 9, fucking.
All your shit talk,
I might be a believer now.
Let's keep this momentum going. Under the gun limps that I'm on the button with a JJ Abrams pocket jiggities. I raise it up to 100 bangers, and I get called by the firefighter out the straddle as well as the original limper. So we're 3 ways to a flop of Queen 3 deuce with 2 clubs, and then the firefighter actually leads out for 175. When under the gun folds, I think we have to throw in the call here. Some concern we do lose to a queen, but my opponent could be leading with a worse pair or any of the numerous draws on this flop. So I throw in the call, heads up to a turn, which is the 8 of diamonds. The opponent keeps stabbing at it, and they go ahead and make it 400. Same thing I said that was true on the flop is definitely true here. It's just maybe the opponent has condensed their range a little bit and they aren't stabbing with like pocket 10s anymore, but still don't think we can be folding just yet. Put us to a decision on the river, Mr. Firefighter. I throw in the call, and then the river is the 2 of spades, so very happy to see all the draws miss, but the firefighter does not slow down. He goes ahead and bets $1,000. Really, really sick spot here, because I think think the opponent's value range is very condensed. I don't think they're going to just be stabbing with like Queen Jack here because they got to be worried I'm calling down with a stronger Queen. I think their range is like anything that's King Queen or stronger, and there's a bunch of like full houses and 2 pairs on this board that they could have as well. But every single draw missed, so it's a really sick spot. I'm in the tank about 90 seconds deciding if the villain is bluffing or not, but ultimately I decide to stay disciplined. I really don't want to be shown King Jack and get completely owned here, so I do decide to fold my hand, and then the villain was kind enough to give us a reveal. He shows Queen 7 of Hearts. So wow, what a really astute read by the villain that they did have the strongest hand even on the river, and boy am I glad we did not pay them off. Next, I'm in the low jack with Ace King of Clubs. What a beautiful hand. I go ahead and make it 60. I get 2 different cold callers before the big blind young gun loose aggressive tournament beast. 3 bets to 395 when the action's on me against this opponent type squeezing. Absolutely no brainer 4 bet here. I actually think we're going to get a lot of folds, and even if we do get action, we have a premium hand. So I go ahead and make it 900 bangers. Both the cold callers fold, and then the young beast throws in the call. So it heads up to a flop of a 7-5 ace rainbow, baby. Boy, it is a good feeling 4-betting ace king and hitting top pair. When the villain checks it over to me, do want to put in a value bet, but I think we want to go very small here. A size that the opponent, if they do have a pair that's kings or worse, will not be folding to. So I go ahead and make it 200 here. Then the villain throws in the call. You love to see it. So we're off to a turn, which is the 2 of hearts, putting out backdoor hearts. The villain checks it over to me again. Unless the opponent specifically has the 2 remaining aces in the deck, we just have this board locked down. So I want to keep betting really small here just to give my opponent's weak pairs a price to call. So I make it my lucky number 420, blaze it up, and then the villain throws in the calls. Love that we're getting value. So we're off to a river, which is the 2 of spades. Pretty bricky brick in my opinion. When the villain checks it over to me again, now I think we can get a bit more greedy. Not totally impossible that my opponent does have a worse ace-x combination. So just trying to get maximum value from those hands and just giving up on getting value from worse pairs. So I decide to make it $1,500 here. I put in the bet, and then the villain is in the tank a solid 2 minutes before folding. So we hate that we're not getting value on the river here, but I can't complain too much when I'm raking in a pot worth over $4,000 at 510. You love to see it.
Can't, yeah.
It makes sense. I wonder why you guys so small in the tournament.
Literally the very next hand, as I'm still raking in chips, I peel ace king again. I raise it up to 60 bangers this time. I only get 1 caller, and when we completely whiff on the flop, I actually decide to check fold. And ace king's a really interesting hand. You're either raking in thousands of dollars with it, or you're losing like a pre-flop raise. The firefighter's in the hijack. He makes it 75, loose aggressive small blind calls, and I'm in the big blind with 7-6 of diamonds. Now I talked about it in my previous video where I recorded every single hand I played. Epic vlog, make sure you go check it out. But I talked about how I use a 3-bet or fold strategy pre-flop. I got a little bit of pushback on it. Now I think this spot is actually a really good spot to throw in a cold call. 1, we're playing a time charge game, so I don't have to pay any extra rake to call here. And 2, I think the firefighter has used his larger raise size pre-flop, so I think it's more likely he has a really strong range here, so I just don't think I'm gonna get many folds with a 3-bet. So ultimately I do decide to throw in the call, and we end up going 3 ways to a flop of 9-6-6, baby, with 2 clubs. We are flopping monsters today. Small blind and I go ahead and check it to the pre-flop aggressor, who makes it 175. The small blind throws in the call. Now I definitely think we want to put in the check raise here. We've earned a bit of an aggressive table image, 3-betting the 7 deuce earlier, and it's going to look like we have one of the million draws on this board if we do check raise. So I make it 600 bangers to go. The hijack folds, and then the small blind moves all in for a bit over 1,100. I throw in the snapperoonie call, and then the small blind tells me he has a flush draw. I show my hand, and we're hoping to fade the club on the run out. The turn is the 5 of diamonds, and the river's the 9 of diamonds. So let's go. We are raking in this over $2,000 pot, and we picked up some heat today. What a session so far, and in this next one I'm under the gun with King 10 and diamonds. I make it 60, 1 player calls, and then the same loose aggressive MTT gunner makes it 340 out of the small blind when the action's back on me. I think with this hand in particular we really want to be 4-betting or folding, and you know this hand wouldn't have made the vlog if I folded. I put in the 4-bet bluff, I go ahead and make it 800 bangers, and then the action folds back to the small blind who throws in the call. So we're playing yet another 4-bet pot against this bloke, and then we are heading heads up to a flop of 3-10. King with 2 clubs, baby. What is going on? We 4-bet bluff and flop top 2 pair somehow. When the villain checks it over to me, want to use the same strategy I used against him in the last 4-bet pot. Want to put in a small size. The SPR is a bit lower here, so really don't need to go that big to get stacks in against strong hands like King X or better. So I go ahead and make it 175, keeping in his weak bullshit. And then he throws in the call. So we're off to a turn, $2,000 in the pot. The turn's a 4 of spades. Very bricky card in my opinion. So when the villain checks it over to me, definitely want to size up now. Like I said, my opponent could have king, queen or stronger. And we just want to lower the SPR to stack that hand on the river. So I go ahead and make it 1,000 bangers here. The villain tanks a little bit before throwing in the call. You love to see it. So we're off to the river, which is the 2 of hearts. Very safe river in my opinion. Villain checks it over to me. They have about 3,000 behind in this $4,000 pot. I have 1 move left, baby. I am all in for over $3,000. And then the villain is in the tank about 90 seconds or so before ultimately folding. So this player has absolutely been Houdini, escaping our value bets on the river here. But yet again, I'm not going to be complaining too much when I'm raking in a $7,000 pot in a 5-10 game. You love to see it.
He has me sit my bag on a platform. I walk in the motorcycle, I'll do it. Literally takes my bag.
Absolute ripper session so far, and things don't slow down from here because in this next one we're in the small blind with a6 of diamonds. I make it 80 and then we get called by our firefighter mate in the straddle. So it heads up to a flop of ace-7-3 rainbow with 1 diamond. Gonna stick with my default strategy here, particularly with a weak kicker. Check it to my villain out of position, then they check back. So we get a free turn, which is the jack of hearts. Definitely want to start value betting now. I make out 100 bangers and then the villain throws in the call. So it heads up to a river, which is the beautiful ace of spades. We river trips. We are running so hot today. Really good spot to go ahead and overbet bomb it. I think if my opponent does have a strong jack, he will not be folding to a really large bet. So I decide to make it 500 bangers, and then the villain throws in the call pretty quickly. You love to see it. I show my hand, and then the villain goes, "That damn jack," as he mucks his hand. So we are raking in yet another pot. The heater continues. We are playing another pot limit Omaha double board bomb pot to pay time charge, and this time we flop a straight on both boards. The heater continues even in the bomb pots, and of course we are trying to pile money in with 2 hands this strong, and by the river we end up getting in 5,770 bangers, and we actually end up chopping someone's dead money with our straight being good on one board, and we end up losing to a high straight on another board. But the heater continues. We're splitting a big bomb pot here, baby. Next hand up, the aggressive hijack makes it 60, and then I'm on the button with queen jack of clubs. I think this is a good spot to use my 3-bet or fold strategy. I go ahead and raise it to 200 bangers, and then we get called by the aggressive fireman out the straddle and the original raiser as well. So we're 3 ways to a flop of ace-10-5 with 2 spades, and then the straddle throws in yet another lead. He loves this move. He makes it 75 this time. The hijack throws in the call, and with a gut shot here, a backdoor flush draw, I definitely think we want to continue. And I actually think calling is better than raising, just because we do have to worry about the hijack having a monster here as well. So I throw in the call. We're heads up to a turn, which is the 10 of hearts, and this time the action checks to me. Now I 100% definitely think we want to start bluffing here. I think if either of the villains had a 10 or stronger, they definitely would have bet on the turn, particularly on a board this wet. So we need to bet big here to represent that hand, and even if we do get called by the straddle, I think it's likely they either have a weak ace or a flush draw, which we can easily bluff off on the river. And I actually think it'll be really hard for the hijack to call with pretty much any hand in his range, unless it's like ace king specifically. So it's just going to get a bunch of folds in the right spots here. Of course, I'm going to use my lucky number, 420, blaze it up, baby. I make it 420, and then the straddle throws in the call, and then the hijack player gives me a kind of suspicious look as he folds. So I think he's sniffing out that I'm full of shit, but he can't call with a weak ace here. So he throws in the fold, and then we're heads up to a river, which is the jack of hearts. Really happy to see it, because now if my opponent does have a king high flush draw, we sucked out on them. They check it over to me. Don't think we want to try and bluff their ace x now. I think we have enough showdown value to just take it here. So I check it back. The villain says I missed, and he shows king 8 of spades. Let's go. We sucked out with our pair on the river. You love to see it. Next hand, I'm in the low jack with ace king of clubs yet again. What a beautiful hand to keep waking up to. I make it 60 and then I get two different callers. So we're three ways to a flop of a 5-3 ace rainbow with one club. We hit it again with ace king. You love to see it. When the small blind checks it over to me, definitely want to start betting at this board. It's an ace high board. Both of the opponents have plenty of worse top pair combinations. So I make it 75 and then we only get called by the tight aggressive small blind. So it heads up to a turn, which is the 5 of spades, putting out backdoor spades. Not the best turn in the world. I think the opponent's going to have a few 5x combinations. Having said that though, when they check it over to me, I still want a better size that a worse ace is going to call. So I decide to make it 200 here. Then the small blind throws in the call. So we do like that we're getting value. The river's a 10 of diamonds. A little bit scary because the opponent probably has ace 10 pure in their range. And that gets very concerning when they actually decide to lead out for 350. It's a very good price to call here, but I really do think it's very likely either the opponent trapped with a 5 on the turn, and now they're scared that we're going to check back, or they just riveted ace 10 and they sucked out on us. I just think their betting range here, particularly against a tight aggressive opponent, it's just very likely that they do have pretty much any hand stronger than ace king here. So I announce out loud, I really am the tightest player in Tampa as I fold my ace king here. Very happy to stay disciplined here despite the good price. Just don't think my opponent was bluffing with this line. Let me know what you think in the comments below. One orbit later, we are in the low jack with ace king yet again, offsuit version this time, still raising it up to 60 bangers, and then we get called by our aggressive firefighter mate on the button. So it heads up to a flop of ace jack 6 with 2 hearts. We keep smashing top pair with ace king. You know you're running good when that happens. Want to start things off with a bet here, trying to get value from worse aces and flush draws. I make it 100, and then things get curious when the button actually raises to 200. So a little min click there. Of course, I'm not folding with this hand. I'd briefly consider 3-betting to try and get value from worse aces, but a bit dicey. I think the opponent has probably all of the 2 pairs on this board. I mean, maybe not jack 6, but whatever the case, I throw in the call. So it heads up to a turn, which is an interesting one. It's the king of hearts. So we suck out on some of their 2 pairs, but the front door flush does get in, which is definitely concerning. So gonna start off with a check over to the villain. They go ahead and put in a barrel for 200. Definitely not folding. I think raising is too thin when my opponent can easily have a flush. That leaves us with one option. I throw in the call. We heads up to a river, which is the 8 of clubs. I check it over to the villain, and then they check back, which you love to see. I show my hand. The villain shows a jack 7, so I guess they gave up on the bluff when it looks like I'm going to have ace king for the 15th time this session, which was very wise of them. And we're raking in another pot. Let's go. This next hand happened so quick, I actually missed the pre-flop action, but we 3-bet aces, and then the firefighter rips it all in for about 1500 with ace jack offsuit. Of course, we snap call, and we end up stacking them on a very clean run out, and we're raking in a $3,000 pot so quick I didn't even see the pre-flop action. What is going on? I have over $12,000 in my stack and I feel absolutely invincible, and I think that might start to show in my play going forward, because in this next hand I'm in the small blind with ace 6 offsuit and I raise it up to 80. This is not a hand you want to be doing this with. Whatever the case, I make it 80 and then the straddle throws in the call. So we heads up to a flop of 10-9-4 rainbow. Pretty big whiff for us. I check it over to the villain, see what they do. They check back, so we get a free turn, which is the 5 of spades. I think the opponent probably has a weak range when they check back on the flop, so I want to start attacking weaker pairs that aren't going to be able to call 2 big bets. So I make a 150 to go here. Then the villain throws in the call. So heads up to the river, which is the 2 of hearts. Pretty bricky brick, in my opinion. And if my plan was to fold my opponent off of pairs that didn't bet on the flop, and if we're going to do that, we need to use a really large size here to just not give them a good price to hero call. So I decide to make it 800 bangers to go, the over bet of bluff. And then the villain tanks for a few seconds, looks at me a bit suspicious, but ultimately decides to fold his hand, and we're pulling in the bluff, baby. So I've built up a monster stack this session. The game's kind of dying down. There's only 5 players left. So in this next hand, under the gun, it makes it 60, and I'm next to act with pocket queens. The heater continues. I 3-bet it up to 200 bangers. When the action's back on the under the gun player, they rip it all in for about 1250, and then I show my pocket queens, and we're off to a run out there. And as you can see, pretty clean looking flop. We're still beating ace king until the river is the ugly king, and of course the villain shows ace king, and the hand that's been doing us so good all night, turns out it's cheating on us. It's doing it for other people too. You hate to see that. Fortunately though, the ace king wants to make it up to us in the next hand because we've got it in the cutoff again. I make it 60 and then a relatively short stack button 3 bets me to 200. When it's back on me, they only have 1800 to start the hand, so I think if we are going to 4-bet here, there's really no other sizing we can use but all in. We'd rather use a small bet size with like a stronger hand, like I don't know, aces that we wanted to trap with. So I think we can either rip it all in or call, but out of position I don't like that play. So of course I am all in 1,800 and then the button folds, so we're taking the pot down pre-flop. Okay, ace king, maybe you are starting to make it back up to me. Next up, an aggressive under the gun player makes it 60, and then the action's on my big blind with ace king of spades. Why do we keep seeing this hand? You know the session's good when that's the case. I 3-bet it to 250, and then things get interesting when a tight aggressive straddle actually 4-bets to 600. The initial raiser folds, and now this is a pretty dicey spot because this opponent has been playing pretty tight, and it's a 4-bet in live poker, so I'm a bit worried that their range is completely nutted and it's just like kings plus. Having said that though, it would be just insanely nitty to fold the suited version of ace king pre-flop when the opponent only has 2,000 in their stack. It's a bit dicey, but I think we have one move in our arsenal left. I rip it all in for 2,000 and then the straddle is in the tank about 30 seconds or so before ultimately folding. So there you go, the ace king has made it back up to us and we've won the past 2 pots pre-flop. You love to see it. Absolutely no prizes for guessing which hand we peel in this next one. I'm in the small blind with ace king off, so duh. I go ahead and make it 80, and then an aggressive straddle 3 bets to 250. Now being out of position here against an aggressive opponent, I think it's absolutely a mandatory 4-bet in this spot. The opponent has 3.8k effective, so that's like just way too big of a rip. I'm going to 4-bet to a more normal size. I make it 800 bangers to go, and then the straddle thinks a little bit before throwing in the call. So it heads up to a flop of 974 with 2 diamonds. I check it over to the villain, see what they go ahead and do, and then they do something I didn't expect. They rip it all in for 3,000, and I'm just like, what the fuck is going on right now? I think their line really smells of like they have a flush draw and they're just trying to take it down. So I am in the tank, very tempted to call off with ace high. The only reason I have some hesitancy is because it's not totally impossible. They do have a hand like pocket 8s, pocket 10s, and they just really don't want me to get there with my ace king type stuff. So ultimately I do decide to fold because, like, you know, either we're against a hand that we're behind or they have a flush draw and they got decent equity against us anyway. So I decide to fold, and then the villain looks a bit relieved as he mucks his cards and he says, I really don't know whether I wanted you to call or fold there. So not quite sure what that means. That could mean they just had a flush draw and we just missed the opportunity to win a $7,000 pot, but I guess we'll never know. Let me know how you all played in the comments below. For the last interesting hand of the video, you already know what hand we're going to peel. It is pocket 8s. In the cutoff, we go ahead and make it 60, and then we get called by the same loose aggressive villain from the previous hand in the small blind. So it heads up to a flop over king 6 deuce with 2 hearts. Small blind checks it over to me. I think it's a good spot to go ahead and bet and get a bit of thin value here. So I make it 50, and then the small blind calls. So it heads up to a turn, which is the queen of clubs putting out backdoor clubs. And then the small blind actually leads for 200. Definitely concerned the opponent could very easily just have king queen and he's going for value here, or honestly any king. But having said that, there's 2 potential flush draws out there, so I don't know, maybe they're just semi-bluffing. So I decide to throw in the call here. We're off to a river, which is a 2 of spades. Pretty clean river, both of the flush draws mixed, but the opponent does not slow down. They go ahead and bet 450. Definitely concerned that they do have a king or strong here, and probably just a prudent spot to go ahead and fold, play some disciplined poker. I mean, our bluff catcher here is pretty weak. I decide to throw in the call here. I think it's a bit of winner's tilt. Everything had been going my way this session and I sort of expected that to continue. So I throw in the call and then the villain shows king 10. So yeah, a pretty bad call here, honestly. And this is actually when I decided to, I mean, everyone was leaving the table anyway. So I decided to rack up and leave before I started to punt off any more money. So what an insane heater we went on this session. Ended up playing a total of 10 hours. We came down from our peak a little bit towards the end. I do think we play really well at first. I mean, it's kind of easy to play well when you are just hitting absolutely every flop, but the same discipline and good aggression we had at the start of the session definitely tailed off towards the end, and we started playing pretty bad. I actually think that pocket ace call on the river is a significantly horrible play, so as a result, going to have to downgrade myself to a B+ grade for today. It was like an A for the first 8 hours maybe, but the last two wrecked it a bit, so going to land on a B+ grade. Despite the fall off at the end, still had excellent results, won 7,570 across the 10 hours for a very sexual hourly. You'll love to see it. If you enjoyed this video and you want to see another one where I go on another insane heater in a 5-10 game, I'm going to put a video up on your screen now. Feel free to click that and see one of the most insane 5-10 sessions I've ever played. For now though, I'm out of here. GG Gamble Gang.